They fired her for helping a trembling old man on the side of the road. No cameras, no reporters, no applause. Just a black woman, standing alone in a cold garage, surrounded by indifferent eyes, choosing to do what's right. Her name was Amira, 26 years old, a top graduate from MIT, but in the Helix engineering garage, they only called her the oil rag girl. That day, an elderly man pushed his stalled electric car into the bay, pleading for help. Everyone turned away. A security guard muttered, "Leave him." Probably just another homeless guy making up stories. Only Amira stepped forward. She didn't know. That man was the father of the chairman of the board, and just hours after she was fired from that garage, she received a message. "I don't need you to fix cars. I need you to help fix the way this entire system sees people." This is a story about one small act, powerful enough to shake an entire corporation, and about one woman who was laughed at, but chosen to lead those the system always overlooks. It all began with a handshake, one no one even noticed, but its value was enough to rewrite the rules of everything. You don't know who I am, but today I know exactly who I trust most in this entire room. That sentence fell in the boardroom like a silent blade, cutting clean through every layer of power. Amira, 26 years old, dark brown skin, a grease-stained technician's jacket clinging to her frame. She stood still, didn't respond, didn't need to, because the frail, gray-haired man standing before her was the very man she had chosen to help when the entire world turned away. 12 hours earlier, he had limped into the garage. His small electric car had broken down in the freezing cold. He said his daughter was in the ER. He needed to get there, fast. But they all looked at him like a madman. Trash. Creepy. Stay away. Only Amira stepped forward. No orders, no cameras. She knelt beside that old car, grease on her hands, no fear in her eyes, knowing full well she might lose her job for it. And she did. Right there, in front of everyone. Because in a system like that, compassion from a black female mechanic was never part of the manual. But now, the man they dismissed was the father of the chairman of the board. And the person he trusted most wasn't the one with the highest title. It was the one who had done the right thing when no one else dared. Helix Works wasn't just any garage. It was built beneath the beating heart of Chicago's tech center, where billion-dollar startup CEOs occupied the top floors. AI labs thrived in the middle, and the basement was where sleek Teslas, Lucids, and Porsches were sent to be pampered. And in that basement, under flickering fluorescent lights, with the hiss of torque wrenches ticking like a mechanical heartbeat, Amira was the only one with black skin and a grease-smudged watch passed down from her mother. She had graduated top of her class in mechanical engineering, specializing in automated electrical systems, from MIT. She once turned down an offer from a defense contractor because she refused to help build machines that destroy. But when she applied to Helix Works, she wasn't called Engineer Amira. They called her the oil rag girl, the department's diversity hire, the skin tone standard for inclusion. Every morning, Amira rode her bike to the garage through the biting cold, lugging a toolkit twice her size. She was always the last to leave, the one who cleaned the workbenches, the one who debugged complex battery faults, and the one who never, not once, got invited to lunch with the team. Helix Works claimed to be building the future through innovation. But down in the lowest level, bias still ran smoother than any software they'd ever engineered. For Amira, going to work wasn't just about fixing cars. It was stepping into an invisible trench, where every glance, every comment, every soft chuckle behind her back could carve a new cut into her sense of worth. She was used to people mispronouncing her name. Amina? Amaya? Amber something. Used to the same tired question. Are you an intern? You look way too young. And used to the surprised stares whenever she explained a circuit layout with bare hands, or diagnosed a drivetrain malfunction just by sound. One male engineer once scribbled on the whiteboard in the tech room, "Black girl equals diversity quota." The whole room laughed. No one erased it. She just wiped it off. Silently. Not because she was weak, but because she had a bigger fight waiting outside these walls. Her mother, once the head nurse, was now paralyzed after a stroke. Her little brother, a high schooler who loved math, was chasing a full-ride scholarship. By day, Amira worked the garage, listening to machines instead of coworkers. By night, she delivered Uber Eats, bringing home a few extra bucks, and hope. No one saw the tiny cuts across her palms break down from the basement restroom, then splash cold water on her face and walk back out like nothing had happened. Amira didn't want pity. She just wanted one thing: to be recognized as someone who could do the job. That morning, the Helix garage buzzed with its usual soundtrack: engines rumbling, metal clanking, laughter echoing from the west side where the tech crew hung out. Then came the groan of the garage door. A long, raspy creak. An old man appeared, pushing a small electric car caked in dust and mud. The front axle was misaligned. The tires cracked open. He wore a faded brown coat. His hair was a wild mess of gray. Dark circles dragged under his eyes like he hadn't slept all night. His voice trembled. My daughter. She was in an accident. She's in the ER at Mercy General. I just need this car to run. Just need to make it there in time." No one responded. No one even looked up. A nearby employee, wearing a security uniform and AirPods, murmured loud enough for a few to hear. "Here we go. Probably some homeless guy making stuff up to get something." A female engineer hurriedly pulled her purse off the table near the entrance. "I don't feel safe. The way he's looking around is creeping me out." The old man turned away, coughing harshly, one hand clutching his chest, as if trying to hold in something deeper than breathlessness. But every eye in the room chose to look elsewhere. Helix catered to the wealthy, a place where people trusted technology and resumes more than human eyes. And in a place like that, an old man like him was nothing but a risk, something to be removed, not listened to. And yet, in that very room, only one person was still looking at him. No one said a word. Only a few scoffs echoed from the back of the shop, and cold eyes swept over the old man like he was a smudge on the concrete floor. Amira clenched the torquey wrench in her hand. Her gloves were slick with oil. Sweat crept down the back of her neck. She took a deep breath, then placed the tool on the workbench, as if laying down a decision. Her footsteps tapped softly across the floor, each step ringing out in the frozen silence of the room. She stopped in front of the old man, knelt to examine the warped front wheel, then looked up and said, "Where's the key? Let me take a look." The old man stared at her, his eyes a mix of disbelief and confusion. His voice cracked. "They're going to fire you. I see the way they look at you. You don't have to get involved with me." Amira gave a faint smile, the kind you wear when you've grown used to being left off lunch invites and skipped in every group email. She replied, voice soft but firm, "I'm not fixing your car. I'm fixing what's broken in this room." No one laughed anymore. No one said a word. One male engineer pretended to focus on his screen, but his fingers froze on the keyboard. A technician muttered under his breath, "Who does she think she is?" Amira didn't need to think about who she was. She just knew. If she didn't step forward, No one would. The sharp click of heels cut through the stillness of the garage. Amira didn't have to turn around to know. Barron had arrived. Mrs. Barron, 55, was a senior executive at Helix Works. A white woman with silver blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, and a voice that always sounded like it was slicing the air in half. She once stood in front of the entire engineering team and declared, "This garage is for real engineers. We don't make space for emotional entitlement hires." In her eyes, Amira's presence had never been the result of skill, but of a checkbox marked diversity in some HR initiative. And now, seeing Amira hunched over an old man's broken-down car, Barron stopped cold in the middle of the garage, her eyes, razor-sharp, locked in. "Who do you think you are? Some black superhero here to save the world?" The words hit like a hammer, not just aimed at Amira, but broadcast to the entire room. "These are my rules, and kindness isn't one of them." No one spoke. No one intervened. Only the old man's eyes moved, watching Amira, filled with concern. And Amira's eyes, steady, locked on her manager. Not defiant, but completely unshaken. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest way to stand on the side of what's right. Barron didn't yell, but her voice was sharp enough to freeze the entire garage mid-motion. "No service request, no liability paperwork, no risk insurance. You're fired. And if you want to make a big deal out of it, go ahead, sue me." No one stepped in. No one asked Amira why. Because to them, the reason was clear enough. She had helped someone who didn't belong. And at Helix, that was a crime. Amira didn't argue. She didn't need to. She simply turned, her eyes scanning each familiar face in the room. The same room where she stayed late to fix bugs, where she patched up faulty circuits, shared lunches when others forgot theirs. Some dropped their gaze. Some turned away. No one spoke up for her. No one stood by. Just one voice, a quiet, sharp laugh, meant to cut deep. Guess she wasn't that great after all. Amira heard it, but she didn't react, because she knew. In places like this, the ones who speak up for what's right are always the first to be sacrificed. And the thing that hurts most isn't the insult from those who hate you. It's the silence from those who once needed you, once owed you, once called you teammate. She stood there, in the cold echo of the garage, a presence no one wanted to remember. But she did not bow her head. Because sometimes, unshaken silence is the loudest form of resistance. The basement locker room was cold as stone. The lone fluorescent bulb above flickered in tired pulses, like Amira's own breath. She opened locker number 17. The door screeched open with a long metallic whine, pulling up memories from over 600 days on the job. Inside, everything was exactly where she left it. The wrench she used to dismantle her first Lucid engine, the digital watch she bought with late-night delivery tips, a notepad, a hair tie, a pair of old gloves still torn from the day she hit the powertrain shaft. All of it now lay silent, like the career she was leaving behind. She packed each item slowly, carefully, as if wrapping away a piece of herself. No tears, no sobs, just emptiness, and a strange new feeling, lighter. Not because she wasn't hurt, but because even in this forced farewell, she hadn't lost the one thing worth holding on to: dignity. Amira didn't walk out defeated. She walked out as someone who chose to do what was right, even when the price was her job, her co-workers, and her place in the system. And sometimes, the things we're forced to leave behind are the clearest proof that we never lost ourselves. The garage's steel door slammed shut behind Amira with a long, dragging creak, as if to make it painfully clear. That door wasn't opening again. The Chicago wind bit at her neck, carrying the sting of burnt rubber and engine smoke into her breath. She tightened the strap of her toolbox, stepping onto the driveway, where the faint tread marks of that old electric car still lingered from that morning. And then she saw him. The old man, silver-haired, in the same worn coat, still standing there, in the very spot where the chaos began. He hadn't left. As Amira started to walk past, he turned. His eyes were red, not from exhaustion, but from something deeper. I made it in time. The surgery. She's stable. Doctor said, if I'd been just a few minutes later, they might not have been able to save her. His voice broke. Then he stepped forward, grasping Amira's hand, still smelling faintly of motor oil. His voice was low, steady. If you hadn't helped me, I would have lost my daughter. No one else in that garage understands what that means, but I do. Amira didn't say a word. She just gave a small nod, a quiet acceptance of something deeper than gratitude. My name is Elijah Winslow, he said, and this won't be the last time you hear that name. She didn't know what he meant, not yet. But in that moment, she knew one thing. She was no longer alone, and sometimes it's the quiet kind of courage that reopens the very doors the world thought it had slammed shut. That night, when Amira returned to her small third-floor apartment, where she lived with her mother and younger brother, everything seemed to fall into silence. She cooked a little porridge, helped her mother shift position in bed, then sat by the window, watching the city lights blink, like thoughts too quiet to speak aloud. Her phone buzzed. A new email appeared. No subject line, no familiar sender. Just a single line. Ms. Amira Toussaint, please report to the executive boardroom, floor 42, Helix Tower, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Chairwoman V. Amira frowned. She had no idea who Chairwoman V was, and even less idea why someone who'd just been fired was being summoned to floor 42, a floor reserved for Helix's highest-ranking leaders, the floor that, according to rumor, housed unnamed boardrooms where decisions worth tens of millions were approved with a single nod. She hovered over the delete button, but her hand paused. Elijah Winslow. That name still echoed in her mind like a bell that hadn't finished ringing. Amira didn't know what awaited her, but after today, after daring to do the right thing and losing everything, she understood something. Anything was possible, even the things no one dared dream. And tomorrow morning might just be the first chapter of something Helix Works never saw coming. The elevator stopped on the 42nd floor. The doors slid open, revealing a world far removed from the oil-stained concrete of the basement. High ceilings, mirrored glass walls, gray carpet so thick it swallowed the sound of every footstep. A receptionist greeted Amira and ushered her into a large room, the only label on the door. Executive boardroom, confidential access. Only one woman sat at the head of the table, her back straight, gaze sharp behind thin wireframe glasses. Brown skin, tightly coiled hair pulled into a high bun. She didn't need to introduce herself. Amira already knew. Victoria Winslow, chairwoman of the entire Helix system. Victoria closed her laptop and looked Amira square in the eyes. I'm the daughter of Elijah Winslow. Amira froze. And this week, my father went undercover to personally assess our company's culture. No assistants, no staff, just him. Victoria pulled a photo from an envelope on the table. The same old man from the garage, now dressed in a tailored suit, standing beside her at an award ceremony. You didn't know who he was, but you acted on instinct, on decency, while our entire team chose to turn away. Her voice softened, but carried weight. You didn't just help my father make it to the hospital in time. You revealed something our internal reports never do. We have a problem, and maybe the one best equipped to help fix it is you." Victoria Winslow didn't speak quickly. Each word was measured, not to soothe, but to re-establish order. "We terminated Mrs. Barron this morning, and the entire Helix basement division is now under internal culture investigation." Amira sat still. She didn't feel triumphant, only a quiet sense of release, like an invisible anchor had just been lifted from her chest. Victoria continued, "What happened to you wasn't just a case of individual injustice. It exposed our failure to live up to the values we claim to stand for." She slid a slim folder across the table toward Amira. "I'd like to offer you the role of head of engineering and advisor for system-wide cultural reform within our technical departments." Amira froze. No one had ever called her an advisor before. No one had ever imagined that the woman who got fired yesterday could be entrusted with leading the repair today. Victoria held her gaze, neither condescending nor flattering. "I'm not choosing you because you were wronged. I'm choosing you because you were the only one who acted when everyone else stood still." Outside, the city of Chicago spun on in its usual rhythm. But inside the boardroom on floor 42, a new chapter had begun, written by the very person they once erased. In the quiet stillness of the glass-walled room on the 42nd floor, Amira looked down at her hands, still smudged with streaks of oil from the day before. The same hands they once called Oil Rag Girl, a quota higher engineer. But now, those same hands were opening a door, not just for her, but for others like her. Victoria rose from her seat, stepped forward, and gently placed a hand on Amira's shoulder. "You don't have to raise your voice to be seen. You just have to be right. And stand still long enough. This world may look past your skin. It may dismiss your gender, but it cannot ignore integrity." Amira said nothing. But when she stood, their eyes met. One woman who had walked the line of exclusion, and one who now held the power to reshape the system. Two black women, across 2 generations, understanding the same truth. Real justice doesn't come from applause. It comes from doing what's right when no one's watching. Amira clasped Victoria's hand. Not a formal handshake, but a silent vow of responsibility. For the first time in years, she no longer saw herself as a black female engineer, trying to survive. She was someone to be trusted, a leader. And for the first time, she truly believed it. The door to the 42nd floor boardroom opened. Amira stepped out, back straight, eyes steady, still wearing her old coveralls, her hands still smudged with grease from the day before. Administrative staff in the hallway looked up. A few engineers from lower floors, there for meetings, paused when they recognized her. Her. The woman who was once fired from the garage for helping an old man, dismissed as trash. The woman who was laughed at behind her back, whose name was mispronounced, who was told she was only good because someone gave her a pass. Today, she didn't lower her head. No rebuttals, no explanations, because her presence, in a space she had never been allowed to enter before, was the answer. As she passed the engineering wing, Amira glanced at the whiteboard that once bore the words, "Black girl equals quota." It had been wiped clean, replaced with a new line. Engineering isn't about color. It's about clarity. She smiled, not from victory, but because, for the first time, the grease on her hands wasn't seen as something lesser, but as the mark of dedication. Today, Amira didn't just walk out with a title. She walked out as a pathfinder. And maybe the greatest reward isn't applause, but a door left open for those who've always been kept outside. Because someone had the courage to stand still long enough to change the system. I keep thinking about that moment, when Amira walked out of the boardroom, hands still stained with grease, but no need to get revenge, just the courage to stand for what was right. She wasn't a hero. She was just an engineer, misnamed every day, questioned because of her skin color, and still choosing kindness like it was muscle memory. And in the end, that kindness, the very thing this world often mistakes for weakness, was what shook a system that had turned its back. I don't know who you are, what job you hold, where you are in this world. But if you've ever felt small, ever felt like giving up, remember Amira. Because sometimes you don't have to shout to be seen. You just have to be right and stand still long enough. Thank you for walking through this story with me. And if today you find yourself choosing between comfort and conscience, I hope you're strong enough to choose what's right, because maybe you too are already rewriting a system you never thought you had the power to change.